right, well, thanks for the turnout, and thanks to Red Cloud for hosting this event. I don't know about middle of July in Toronto, but we'll take it. Pacton is a high-grade gold explorer, well-financed. Our primary jurisdictions are Red Lake, Ontario, and Western Australia, and the search is for basically your classic vein-styled high-grade gold and in Archean rocks. So the geology is much the same in Western Australia as Red Lake, and actually the politics is fairly similar also. So in terms of our land position in Red Lake, I'll start with Red Lake first, and I probably should add that we've recently completed a $5.5 million financing, so we're in good shape in terms of our funds and our ability to carry out these programs. So we're central in the heart of all the Red Lake action right now. We positioned ourselves there a couple of years ago before people were thinking much about Red Lake, except for what's going to happen to Goldcore. But our position's directly north of the new Great Bear discoveries, and then we're directly south of the Goldcore or Newmont main production shaft, and we also tag on to the Pure Gold Madsen, the new mine that they're building there. So in terms of the general geology, basically we're looking for structurally controlled gold, so it's fault hosted. There hasn't been a lot of exploration in the bulk of our lands because generally the thinking in Red Lake was once you got south of the Balmer units into the Confederation series rocks, and they're not that much different. And so that's between the blue and the greens. Once you got into that package, it wasn't as prospective, because people get locked into their ideas. There was 20 plus million ounces produced out of those Balmer rocks, so it's understandable. But Great Bear kind of broke that mold. They discovered their Dixie and then their Hinge and their Dixie discoveries, and now they kind of have a string of 3, I think, discoveries at this point. And the structural corridor that they're on goes directly northwest right into our ground, and that's primarily what we're looking at. So there's a bunch of these are historical work, like between the 1930s and the early 2000s. So it's been very sporadic, but we're focused more on that Boyden area. So that's in the middle, and historically there were grab samples or chip samples on surface of up to 133 grams per ton, hosted in the right rocks, so hosted in mafic and felsic contacts along faults. And that's exactly what Great Bear is finding right now. Recently we've completed a high-resolution magnetic survey, and what we're looking for is folds and contacts, and there's plenty of that. But basically we're focused between those 2 dashed white lines for now, and you can see that structural corridor to the south of us, that's where Great Bear is situated, and that's where their discoveries are, and they come right up into ours, and that's where our current sampling is and mapping's going on, and that'll lead to drilling this fall. So this is a classic pattern, if you will. Basically, you've got these northwesterly dotted lines, and those are sort of the main faults that come up from the Great Bear area. And then the northeasterlies are the conjugates, or sort of you can call them right-Ls or extensionals, but they're a pattern. And we're working right in the heart of that, in that Caricona Boyden area. And so our most recent work, we from surface took samples of up to 126 grams per ton. There was visible gold in the rock, lots of galena, So it's very well and typically mineralized Red Lake area type material. So that's where our crews are currently. They're basically kind of stripping outcrop, mapping, taking samples, and getting us prepared for ultimately for drilling there. We're preparing to drill there in late August, early September, and likely it'll be about a 10,000 meter program to start with, but that's kind of a minimum, hopefully. Now this is really, it looks like a fish finder, I know, but you're actually looking for the same thing. I mean, you want structure and you want the fish, right? And so the shadowy figures on there basically say that we have structure to well below 6 kilometers in depth. And this was done, it's called a lithoprobe. It's done in the 1990s by the federal government, and their transect, so where they crossed was right through the middle of our ground, north to south, so it gave us a pretty good advantage. It was designed to show, like the Red Lake mines, what kind of structures went to depth. And so on the right side, you've got the Red Lake mines, with maybe a little more intense structure, but I mean, that's 20 plus million ounces of production. So effectively all we're trying to say here is, look, we have structure, it penetrates deep, the fluids that came up through these structures are likely coming through our rocks as well. And the final Red Lake slide is more of like a blood vein artery type drawing, but basically it's a compilation of our magnetic work with a structural study. All it's saying is there's a lot of activity, like the right type of patterns that we're working with, and it's right in the heart of where we currently are working. So, there's been a bit of science and a lot of the background work leading up to this point where we're finally on the ground sampling, and we managed to finance, and now we're ready to, or nearly ready to drill come early fall. The model is sound. It's been proven by other companies now, so it's basically the yellow-green contacts, so felsic-mafic contacts, faults, folds, and the bottom drawings are just geochemical data that shows, yes, we have the right rocks. They're high iron tholeiitic basalts, and then they're in contact with felsic and intermediate. So that's competence contrast, so that's what makes the cracks basically and allows the fluids to come up. So in summary on Red Lake, basically magnetics are done. There's a lot of the structural study and that sort of thing is done. We have crews on the ground in a number of places, and we're prepping for a pretty serious drill program come the fall. Moving on to Western Australia. We're the third largest landholder in the Pilbara region in yellow. So that's our land holdings in yellow. And it's been a bit of an evolution. We kind of were caught up in that whole conglomerate craze, but it's kind of evolved to, we're back to basics where we feel it's the overlying gravels and are basically fed by the underlying fault-hosted gold showings. And so we're looking for those more in a classic Canadian sense, and it sticks to our expertise as well. And we'll let the larger companies do the science and the longer term work that'll prove whether these conglomerates are economic or not. So the first area that we're focused on is the Egina area. You might have heard of that through Novo. They're bulk sampling in that area now. They're bulk sampling overlying gravels. So this is unconsolidated loose gravels effectively, and they extend over tens of kilometers. We're in the yellow. The one advantage we have to the south, that kind of string of showings you see to the south is on a mining lease. So we're the only ones in the area with mining leases, and that allows us to do processing actually on site. The tan color is the extent of these gravels. In the middle of that slide, you'll see that's where Novo's doing their bulk sampling. And to the south of them is us. So again, in those mining leases, we're doing small scale bulk sampling currently. We have a crew up there sampling those gravels, and we have geological crews testing, because you can see a trend in that northeasterly direction, and that's the underlying fault and vein hosts that exist there. That's likely the source of a lot of this gold in the gravels. So recently we've had prospecting crews, and they've come up with these gold-laden quartz nuggets, and that's obviously from veins. It's not, sedimentary derived. So these are source type gold, and that's what we're looking for, and we're honing in along that northeasterly structure, and intend to be drilling there likely late fall. Our second project's called Yanakajina. It's a little bit east of Edna, and again, quartz hosted high-grade gold, and again, it's a northeasterly structure. So in that light green color, the smaller yellow boxes are actual mining leases. And what we're doing is your typical mag and surface sampling type work, and it leads to drilling. We're going to drill it in a kind of a Canadian sense. You'd be surprised at the lack of drilling here. There's effectively no drilling to depth for this kind of a structure. There's old pits, shafts and whatnot from the 1930s and 40s, and you can basically see them. It's very wide open there. There's not a lot of topography, not a lot of anything. So, but you'd be shocked at how little work has been done to depth to see if these structures go to any depth. And I can tell you they didn't, come from the sky, so I assume that going down is the right direction. But so this is more like the initial mapping and sampling work we've been doing. The locations of the samples are all GPSed and whatnot. We're up to 126 grams per ton that we've sampled on surface. And we've got established about a 14-kilometer long trend here. Some of the outcrop vein, you can see it, that quartz vein exposed that surface all the way up that hill. So yeah, 3-4 kilometers at a time you can see these veins running. So it's going to be a case of us figuring out what the sweet spots are within these veins, where they fold slightly or dilate, and that's what we're going to be chasing with our drilling. And our third project there is the Booty area, or Booty, and basically it's the edge of a large altered felsic intrusion, and all the ridges you see are actually veins, and it's the opposite to Canada. So they had no glaciation, so the veins and the altered areas in Canada have been preferentially kind of dug out. Here it's actually exposed better. It's the reverse. So LiDAR and advanced topography and whatnot really make these veins stand out. So this is a sampling over a large scale, like a 5 by 5 kilometer scale. So this is where we're looking for either a series of high-grade veins or a larger, broader alteration mineralized zone. So that's our third project. Like I said, the work's been going on these 3 projects now. We're fully financed to do it. Bulk sampling in the Edna area, and hopefully leading to drilling this fall. Yeah, just a bit on our management, mainly geologists. I've got about 32 years in the business. Our structure is as you see it, but with about a $5.5 million cash balance right now. So Thanks for that, and I can take any questions if there are any.